Hey there, Silly Story here, bringing you another silly tale for everyone to enjoy. Title: Confessions on the Air. As a high school radio DJ, I thought I could use my anonymous voice to share little confessions about my crushes, safely hidden from everyone's eyes. But when my co-host accidentally exposed my identity, everything changed. Join me as I navigate the chaos that follows. Story begins. Hey, I'm Mia, resident high school DJ, lover of 90s rom-coms, and occasional disaster in the love department. Running our school radio station is supposed to be my thing. My space, my safe little bubble, where I get to be the voice without anyone knowing who's behind it. And, okay, maybe I got carried away one day and started anonymously talking about my crushes on air. What can I say? It's easier to get stuff off your chest when you're just a voice on the other side of a radio dial. But of course, things couldn't stay simple. One day, Derek, my loud, wildly dramatic co-host, who's as much of a headache as he is funny, decided to change all that. It turns out Derek was a little too curious about who I'd been talking about on air, and it only took one slip of the tongue for my whole anonymous setup to come crashing down. I was just doing my usual show, sharing a harmless little confession about how one of my crushes had the most adorable laugh and an infuriating way of making me blush. Nothing too specific, of course, but that's when Derek decided to spice things up. "Aw, that's cute, Mia," he said, way too casually into his mic. My eyes widened as I realized what had just happened. I yanked off my headphones and glared at him, mouthing, "What are you doing?" Derek just shrugged, giving me his trademark mischievous grin. What? People would have guessed it eventually. And that was the end of my anonymity. Within minutes, my phone was blowing up, with classmates and friends all messaging things like, "OMG, Mia, you have crushes? Who is it?" And, "I knew it was you." I wanted to crawl under the broadcast table and disappear, but Derek had other ideas. He grabbed his mic and announced a brand new segment. Guess the Crush. Ladies and gents, this is your chance to call in and guess who Mia's mystery guy is, he said, sounding way too pleased with himself. Derek's Guess the Crush segment was, without a doubt, the worst idea in the history of terrible ideas. But unfortunately for me, that didn't stop the calls from coming in. Our classmates were absolutely thrilled to play along. The first caller went big, guessing our ancient history teacher, Mr. Hughes. "Mia, is it true?" Derek asked, barely able to hold back laughter. "Are you secretly enamored with Hughes's collection of dusty old maps and his riveting 3-hour lectures on the Roman Empire?" Absolutely not," I groaned, covering my face. "That's a nightmare, not a crush." But Derek was on a roll. The next caller suggested Coach Thompson, our overly enthusiastic gym teacher who has a thing for whistleblowing every 5 seconds. "Ooh, yes, I can see it now," Derek said, nodding with fake solemnity. "You're drawn to his unparalleled bicep flexes and his passion for dodgeball." "Please stop," I squeaked, horrified as Derek grinned at me. The calls kept getting weirder. "How about Robbie from the janitorial staff?" one girl asked. "You know, the one who whistles while he mops?" Derek's eyes lit up. "Yes, is it true, Mia? Has Robbie stolen your heart with his mopping skills?" I banged my head on the desk. "No, I don't even know Robbie. I've never spoken to Robbie." It got worse. The next caller suggested I might be in love with Clarence, the cafeteria cook. "Oh yes, it all makes sense now," Derek said in his most serious voice. "Mia's been seduced by the smell of Clarence's meatloaf surprise, that delightful mix of mystery meat and unidentified spices." "Oh my God, please make this stop," I wailed. "No can do, Mia," Derek said with a wicked grin. "The people need answers." Someone called in with the wild idea that I had a thing for Randall, the guy who dresses up as the school mascot, a 6'6" badger with a questionable fur costume that hadn't been washed in years. "Mia, does Randall's, dedication to school spirit really get your heart racing?" Derek asked, clutching his sides with laughter. "Ew, no," I practically shouted into the mic. He smells like gym socks and cheap cologne. Then came the weirdest suggestion yet. What about Daniel, the drama club guy? A voice suggested. You know, the one who practices his soliloquies in the hallway? Oh, this one is definitely true, Derek said, wiping away a tear of laughter. Isn't Daniel the guy who once tried to woo you by reciting Hamlet's to be or not to be speech while standing on top of a cafeteria table? I could barely speak from the sheer absurdity. I can confirm it's not him. But that didn't stop the madness. Soon I had apparently admirers in every corner of the school. According to the callers, I had secret feelings for the school librarian, the shy kid from the AV club, the girl who writes fan fiction about teachers, and even Louie, the collects cafeteria milk cartons to build stronger bones. By now, I was nearly crying from embarrassment and laughter. The grand finale came when someone called in and suggested our science teacher's pet iguana, Mr. Spiky. Derek barely kept it together, gasping out, "So, Mia, is there something about Mr. Spiky's scales that you just can't resist?" I buried my face in my hands. I'm not dignifying that with a response, I mumbled into the microphone. By the end of the show, half the school was convinced I had a crush on the most bizarre lineup of characters ever. Derek closed the segment with, well, that's it for Guess the Crush. Stay tuned next week, where we'll dive into Mia's rumored love life with inanimate objects and her possible obsession with the school vending machine. Mortified, I turned to him, seething. I'm going to kill you. He just grinned and said, wouldn't have it any other way. Of course, things didn't stop there. The next day, Derek was still riding high from the chaos of the Guess the Crush segment. He couldn't stop grinning at me, which I had come to learn was never a good sign. I took my seat across from him in the radio booth, adjusting my headphones. All right, Derek, what have you got planned for today? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Oh, you'll see, he replied, his grin growing even wider. We've got a surprise announcement, he declared into the mic as soon as we went live. Alarm bells went off in my head, but I didn't have a chance to stop him. Ladies and gentlemen, Derek began, his voice adopting a dramatic tone. I can't keep it a secret any longer. I, Derek, am in love with Mia, my co-host, my friend, the woman of my dreams. My mouth dropped open. He could not be doing this. But he wasn't finished. Before I could cut his mic, he dropped to one knee on the floor of the sound booth, even though, as I desperately wanted to remind him, there was no one around to see him. Holding out an imaginary ring, he looked up at me with the most over-the-top lovesick expression I'd ever seen. Mia, will you do me the honor of pretending to date me? He declared dramatically, his voice brimming with faux romantic enthusiasm. I stared at him, mouth open, cheeks burning. The silence in the booth was deafening for a second, and I almost believed he was serious. Then, realizing how ridiculous this all was, I smacked him on the shoulder, still blushing. Derek, what are you doing? Going all in for the ratings, he whispered with a sly wink. The rest of the school, of course, had no idea it was just a joke. By lunchtime, the rumor mill had exploded. People were congratulating me in the hallways, asking for wedding dates, and practically offering to throw us a bridal shower on the spot. Some seniors even slipped notes with, "Congrats," and invite us to the wedding onto my locker, as if I needed more evidence of how thoroughly Derek had wrecked my life. Derek, of course, was loving every minute of it. He strutted through the halls like a celebrity, milking it for all it was worth. When he spotted me by my locker, he ran over with a big, exaggerated smile. Hey, fiancé! He greeted me, practically shouting so everyone around us could hear. I rolled my eyes. I hope you know that you're paying for my therapy after this. Therapy? He said, laughing. Mia, think of it as free practice for when you have a real engagement one day. I'm just helping you get comfortable with public affection. Derek, this is emotional damage, I said flatly. I'll be invoicing you for it at the end of the semester. He leaned in, eyes glinting with mischief. All right, What's my fiancé fee? What do I owe you? I tapped my chin, pretending to think. Let's see, I want you to carry my backpack for the next week. You're also buying me lunch every day. And, oh, definitely a daily apology letter, in calligraphy. Derek laughed. Deal, he said, slinging my backpack over his shoulder with a little bow. It's the least I can do for my beloved fiancé. But, to my horror, he wasn't done with his antics. At the end of the day, he tracked me down in the cafeteria, holding a crumpled-up note. Everyone, he called out, waving his arms to get attention. I wrote my beloved Mia a love letter. I covered my face with my hands as he dramatically cleared his throat. Dearest Mia, he read loudly in his best attempt at a Shakespearean accent. From the first moment I saw you, probably getting coffee spilled on you in the hall. I knew we were meant to be. You complete me. You are the peanut butter to my jelly, the chalk to my cheese. I groaned, laughing despite myself. He wasn't wrong. I had spilled coffee on myself, and him, more than once. By the end of the day, Derek had practically secured his role as class clown of the year. He even printed out a photo of a diamond ring he found online, taped it to my locker, and scrawled, "For the love of my life," in big, cheesy handwriting. And while I hated to admit it, I was almost starting to enjoy the whole ridiculous charade. There was something fun about having a partner in crime, even if it was all fake. But that didn't mean I was letting him off the hook. Listen, Derek, I told him the next day as we headed to the booth. The emotional damage fee is going up, and I'm adding a chocolate milkshake to my order. He held up his hands in surrender. Hey, I get it. This much romance? It's a lot to handle. He winked, then took his seat, all charm and mischief as we prepared for another day of radio chaos. And while I pretended to sigh, roll my eyes, and scold him endlessly, I couldn't shake the small, stupid smile on my face. The next day, I spotted Derek at the mall, and I did what any sane person would do after their fake boyfriend created absolute chaos in their life. I decided to avoid him. But just as I was about to duck into a potted plant, yes, really, I noticed he was with a girl. And not just any girl. She was tall, effortlessly stylish, and she was laughing at all his jokes like he was the funniest guy on the planet. My stomach did a weird flip as I realized, oh no, Derek was on a date. A real date. So naturally, I became a complete spy. I hid behind a display of oversized stuffed animals and peered over a teddy bear's head to get a better look. Yep, there they were, looking all chummy in the food court. Great, just great. I was just supposed to pretend date him for show, right? But now, here he was, laughing it up with Miss Perfect hair. I tried to slip away unnoticed, but in my panic, I tripped over a rack of scarves. Wham! They all came crashing down on top of me. I struggled out from under the scarves, face flaming, and made a beeline for the nearest store. But when I snuck a peek around a corner, there they still were, happily sharing nachos. So, plan B, duck into the closest shop and act like I was casually browsing. Unfortunately, the closest shop was a bridal store. Of course, and before I could make a run for it, one of the salespeople asked, "Oh, looking for your big day? I have the perfect veil for you." No big day, I stammered, grabbing a random hat off a rack and pulling it over my eyes. I sidestepped the confused sales lady, hoping she'd think I was someone else entirely. But as I was about to escape the bridal store, I heard Derek calling, "Mia, hey Mia." I froze, pretending to be deeply invested in the hats. But he found me anyway, lifting one eyebrow as he took in my admittedly weird disguise. "Were you hiding from me?" he asked, clearly amused. No, I grabbed the closest wedding veil and shoved it on my head in a desperate attempt to look busy. "Just trying things on?" "Right," he said, smirking. Then he pulled me away from the veils and over to meet her. "Mia, meet my cousin, Samantha," he said with a grin. I blinked. Cousin? This gorgeous girl was his cousin? "Oh, nice to meet you," I stammered, feeling a wave of relief and embarrassment crash over me like a tidal wave. Derek raised an eyebrow, clearly enjoying my awkwardness. What, did you think I was on a date? No, I said, turning red. I didn't think that. I mean, you and her and nachos and you know what? Never mind. Derek grinned. Wait, were you jealous? No, I said, trying not to trip over my own feet as I tried to backpedal. I was just, window shopping in a bridal store. For hats. Samantha laughed and gave Derek a knowing look. Wow, you two are adorable. Yep, aren't we? Derek said, winking at me as he walked off with his cousin, leaving me there standing under a bridal sign, with a veil in hand and my dignity in tatters. After the whole fake proposal and mall date debacle, I decided it was time to get some real closure on my past crushes, starting with my old crush, Tyler. I'd liked him on and off since freshman year. Quiet, artistic, and effortlessly cool in that I play guitar and don't care way. I figured confessing might finally help me cross him off my list and put all this embarrassing chaos behind me. So one afternoon, I cornered him in the hallway after school. My heart was racing and my palms were definitely sweaty, but I took a deep breath and went for it. Hey, Tyler, I started, doing my best to keep my voice steady. So I've kind of liked you for a while. There, I'd said it. I looked up at him, waiting for his reaction, which was definitely not what I expected. His eyes widened for a second and then he broke into a sheepish smile. Oh, wow, Mia, I'm really flattered, he said, scratching the back of his head. I waited, feeling my face heating up as he kept hesitating. Finally, he said, Look, Mia, you're great, really, but, I'm kind of not into girls. I froze, processing his words. Oh, I stammered, feeling like I'd just walked into a wall. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Tyler laughed, patting my shoulder with a kind smile. No worries at all. Seriously, it's flattering. And you know, it's actually kind of nice to finally have someone confess to me for once. I was about to thank him and make a quick exit when he hesitated, looking thoughtful. Actually, Mia, if you're not really into Derek, do you think I could get his number? I blinked, my brain doing a double take. Wait, Derek? Tyler's cheeks turned a bit pink as he nodded. Yeah, he's funny and that whole fake proposal thing he did on air? I don't know. I thought it was kind of cute. I had to physically hold my mouth shut to keep from laughing. Derek? Really? Tyler shrugged, looking shy. He's got this kind of goofy charm. And well, if you're not into him, maybe he's free. I didn't know whether to burst out laughing or just collapse from the sheer hilarity of it all. Here I was awkwardly confessing to an old crush, only to find out that not only was he not into girls, he was into Derek. My co-host, my fake fiancé, my #1 instigator in public humiliation, and apparently my accidental matchmaker. Sure, I managed to say, trying to hold back laughter. I'll, let Derek know you asked. Tyler gave me a thumbs up, looking genuinely happy. Awesome, thanks, Mia. As I walked away, I pulled out my phone and typed a quick text to Derek, trying to keep it as cool as possible. Hey, so, Tyler asked for your number. Apparently he's into you? Seconds later, Derek responded with a string of question marks. Then another message. Wait, Tyler? Guitar Tyler? Yep, I replied, grinning at my screen. Looks like you have an admirer, and no fake proposal necessary this time. The rest of the day, I kept replaying that conversation in my head, chuckling to myself. Sure, my confession hadn't exactly gone the way I'd imagined, but at least it gave me the weirdest, funniest form of closure possible. I'd officially crossed Tyler off my list, and somehow added another layer to the strange, uncharted territory that was my life with Derek. And knowing Derek, he'd find a way to milk this new development for all it was worth. By now, Derek was insistent on helping me with my love life, so much so that he invited himself over for a friendly dinner to find a solution to my problem. The problem? I'm a terrible cook. The night of the dinner arrived, and I had high hopes. Maybe this would be the moment I could impress him with my culinary skills. Spoiler alert, it went exactly as you'd expect from someone whose cooking prowess is limited to microwave popcorn. It all started off innocently enough. I had the pasta boiling, and I was feeling good about myself, until I got distracted by a TikTok video of someone making gourmet mac and cheese. I was mesmerized, so mesmerized that I didn't notice the water boiling over and cascading onto the stove like a miniature lava flow. By the time I realized, it was too late. I panicked and grabbed the pot with both hands, attempting to salvage what little dignity I had left, when I accidentally knocked over a bottle of olive oil that sent the pasta flying. But that wasn't even the worst of it. In a last-ditch effort to redeem myself, I decided to attempt a simple dessert: chocolate chip cookies. How hard could it be? Famous last words. I preheated the oven, but as soon as I opened the oven door, I realized I had somehow set the chocolate chips on fire. Yes, you heard that right. Flames shot up, and suddenly I was in full-on survival mode. I panicked, grabbed a nearby kitchen towel, and waved it frantically, only to trigger the smoke alarm, which blared like a siren that was just alerted to a 5-alarm fire. "Derek, help!" I shouted, not entirely sure if I was crying or laughing. Just then, the doorbell rang, and I had to wonder if it was the fire department or just Derek, blissfully unaware of the culinary apocalypse he was walking into. When Derek arrived, he took one look at the kitchen. Smoke everywhere, a pot of pasta that was just about to explode, and a sad pile of what once could have been cookies, and burst into laughter. "Well, looks like I came just in time to save the day," he said, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. "More like just in time to witness my humiliation," I muttered, trying to wave away the smoke and salvage what little remained of my dinner plans. Just then, my parents burst into the kitchen, drawn by the commotion. My dad took one look at Derek and said, "You must be the infamous Derek. Mia's told us all about you. You're practically family now." I groaned. "Oh no, please don't." "Family?" Derek said, eyebrows shooting up. "Well, that's new. I didn't realize I was signing up for that." "Oh, don't be shy, Derek," my mom chimed in, leaning over to pat his back. "We'll take good care of you. Mia, tell him about the time you tried to make pancakes and ended up with a kitchen that looked like a flower bomb exploded." "No, Mom, that's not." "Or how about the time you made spaghetti and forgot to boil the water? You had the whole family sitting at the table waiting for hours." My dad added, chuckling, "Guys, please, this is so embarrassing." I buried my face in my hands as Derek's laughter rang out, clearly enjoying the spectacle. "Don't worry, Mia," he said, grinning. "At least you've got a flair for the dramatic." We spent the next half hour cleaning up together, Derek cracking jokes about how I could just write a cookbook titled "Burnt Offerings: The Art of Culinary Catastrophe." I couldn't help but laugh, even as I picked bits of burnt cookie off the floor. "Honestly, I should probably just hire a personal chef," I said, laughing. "Or maybe we can just order pizza and call it a day," Derek suggested, throwing a rogue piece of charred pasta in the trash. By the end of it, I realized I didn't really care that my dinner date had failed miserably. Derek was there, and somehow that made everything okay. Plus, with my parents treating him like family and sharing their most embarrassing stories about me, it was hard not to enjoy the moment. "So, what's next?" Derek asked, leaning against the kitchen counter. "More culinary adventures, or are we sticking to takeout?" "Definitely takeout," I said, rolling my eyes but unable to suppress a smile. "And you're coming with me. I need someone to help me decide between pepperoni and Hawaiian. And no more cooking disasters, okay?" "Deal," he said, grinning as we walked out together, the smoke still lingering behind us as a testament to my cooking skills, or lack thereof. Fast forward to the school festival, where Derek and I had to work a booth together. Somehow, we ended up handcuffed to each other as part of a prank by our friends, who thought it would be hilarious to give us a day of absolute chaos. So, there we were, locked together like a pair of misfit criminals, shuffling around, bumping elbows, and trying and failing not to get on each other's nerves. At one point, we had to eat lunch handcuffed. The cafeteria was packed with students laughing at our predicament, and I swear, half of them had their phones out recording the whole thing. I couldn't even get my sandwich to my mouth without elbowing Derek in the ribs. "Careful, that's my lunch you're about to wear," he joked just as I took a huge bite out of my sandwich, which promptly got squished, launching a rogue piece of lettuce directly into his hair. "Oh no, now you're a salad too," I laughed, my mouth full. Derek looked like he was about to retaliate when he accidentally spilled his drink all over me, his soda splattering across my shirt. "Oops, guess I was just trying to hydrate my favorite co-host," he said, feigning innocence. "Hydrate this," I shouted, grabbing the ketchup from my fries and smearing it across his cheek with a mischievous grin. He gasped in mock horror. "Is this how you treat your guests?" And that's when things escalated into a full-blown food war. With our hands still locked together, we started launching condiments at each other like we were in some sort of ridiculous food fight. Mustard? Check. Ranch dressing? Check. By the time we were done, we looked like we had been attacked by a rogue fast food truck. Everyone around us erupted into laughter, and soon it seemed like half the cafeteria joined in on our food war. I could barely keep my composure as Derek threw a handful of napkins at me, creating a chaotic paper tornado. It didn't take long for the cafeteria to turn into a scene straight out of a slapstick comedy, with students ducking for cover and dodging flying food. "Now this is how you celebrate a school festival," Derek shouted above the din, and I couldn't help but laugh. As we were about to make another move, our friends who had orchestrated this whole thing, finally came over, holding the key to our handcuffs. "All right, lovebirds, enough with the condiment chaos." "Lovebirds?" I blurted out, my cheeks turning crimson as I realized how that sounded. Yeah. Very funny," Derek said, rolling his eyes but grinning widely. He looked over at me, and I could tell he was having just as much fun as I was. When our friends finally unlocked us, it felt bittersweet. For the first time, it didn't feel like an act, and I couldn't deny the warm, fuzzy feeling that had settled in my chest. As we stood there, covered in ketchup and soda, I realized that maybe this chaotic, messy adventure with Derek was exactly what I needed. With our arms finally free, I playfully shoved him, only for him to retaliate by pulling me into a side hug. "We should definitely do this again sometime," he said, still chuckling. "Next time we pick the food," I replied, laughing as we surveyed the aftermath of our cafeteria battlefield. Who knew handcuffs could lead to such culinary chaos and unexpected fun? It was our final radio show before summer, and Derek was uncharacteristically quiet. The usual banter was absent as we went through the motions, and I could feel a shift in the air. Just as we were wrapping up, he turned to me with that familiar mischievous look, but there was something softer in his eyes that made my heart skip a beat. "Hey, Mia," he said into the mic, his voice steady yet a little nervous. "You know, I think it's time I make a confession of my own." I raised an eyebrow, my heart pounding. "Oh? Yeah," he said, clearing his throat. "I've got a confession, and it's about my favorite co-host, who also happens to be the funniest, most stubborn person I know." I felt my cheeks warm as he continued. "Turns out, I'm kind of crazy about her." There was a pause, the whole studio filled with the quiet hum of the mic. My heart raced, and I didn't need to think twice. I grabbed my mic and said, "Well, good thing I'm kind of crazy about you too." Derek grinned, his eyes sparkling. "You know what? That just proves we're a perfect match." "Just like a pair of mismatched socks?" I joked, leaning into the moment. He laughed, shaking his head. "Nah, more like peanut butter and jelly." "Okay, I can work with that. But you know what? I think we should take it a step further," I said, leaning closer to the mic, my voice playful. "How about a knock-knock joke?" Derek raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "All right, I'm game. Knock knock, who's there?" I replied, unable to suppress my smile. "Olive," he said, barely holding back his laughter. All of who? I asked, leaning in closer. I love you, he proclaimed, his eyes twinkling with sincerity. The studio fell silent for a moment, the weight of his words hanging in the air. I couldn't help but grin. Well, in that case, knock knock. Who's there? He asked, his curiosity piqued. Tank, I said, trying to keep a straight face. Tank who? He replied, ready for the punchline. You're welcome. I burst out, laughter echoing through the studio. Derek shook his head, laughing. You're impossible, Mia. But I wouldn't have it any other way. With that, the laughter faded into a comfortable silence, and we exchanged a look that spoke volumes. The air crackled with something new, something real. I realized that this wasn't just the end of the school year. It felt like the beginning of something incredible. As the show came to a close, Derek reached over and squeezed my hand. So what now? Now? I said, my heart racing. We planned the best summer ever. Together? He asked, his voice hopeful. Absolutely, I replied, a smile spreading across my face. Together. And just like that, our lives became intertwined in a way I had never imagined, with laughter, confessions, and the promise of summer adventures waiting just around the corner. By the time we wrapped up that last show, my life had changed in ways I never could have predicted. What started as a way to vent my love life on air had turned into something way more real, and a lot more complicated. But as I looked at Derek, with his goofy smile and sparkling eyes, I realized I didn't mind the mess one bit. The following week, everyone at school was buzzing with the news of our confession. Suddenly, we were the school's it couple, with people stopping us in the hallways to say how cute we were, or to tease us about our legendary Guess the Crush segment. And Derek, of course, took full advantage of our new fame. He dramatically serenaded me in the cafeteria, purposely staged the worst fake arguments in front of everyone, and even leave ridiculous notes in my locker, signed with yours truly, future husband Derek. One day, he even tried to propose to me again, this time using a ring he'd made out of a twist tie from the cafeteria's sandwich bags. I know it's not the most glamorous, he said, trying his best to keep a straight face, but it's the thought that counts, right? I couldn't help but laugh, rolling my eyes as I took the twist tie ring. You're the most ridiculous person I know, I said. And that's why you love me, he replied, flashing a grin. And he wasn't wrong. By the time our senior year rolled around, Derek and I were still co-hosting the school radio show, but this time with a new twist. We turned it into a kind of advice segment, one part confessions, one part comedy, and entirely us. People would call in with their own crush problems, and we'd tackle them with way too much enthusiasm, and often not a lot of actual wisdom. One day, as we were signing off from one of our most chaotic shows yet, Derek took my hand under the table. I think this all worked out pretty well, don't you? He said, a smile tugging at his lips. Yeah, I replied, giving his hand a squeeze. Pretty well for a disaster. And as we watched the on-air light fade, I couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, life is way better when you stop trying to script it and let it unfold, chaos and all. The end. Thanks for listening. Make sure to visit our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this, show some love by hitting like, sharing it with someone you know, and subscribing so you can be part of this channel's journey. See you again for another silly story.